time for that sequel. So, let's get to the thing that made the Nyakumis look small in comparison. Oh, what's gonna happen? That video doesn't touch on the aftermath. Oh, well, I don't need to worry about that, at least not in this part. So, we've basically confirmed that that the intestines are a straight line for this succubi, this creature, this thing, and the woman. So, let's explain how exactly they would work with their guts being a straight line. So, the lungs, they would be moved to the side. They would be moved out, as they're already positioned towards the sides of the body. The natural progression of this would be to move them to the side, like with the kidneys. And the interesting thing about this is that the section connecting the esophagus to the lung would actually be longer, which means it would take more time for a given molecule to go into the lung and then leave the lung because it has more distance to travel. Okay, what next? The kidneys. Those would be largely unaffected. Sure, they're gonna be further apart, if they even move at all, but we do know that the lungs move because, oh golly gee, that rib cage, what, it's not natural to bend like that. And, one thing about the lungs I didn't mention, they're probably each going to have separate diaphragms, which means that if one lung just cannot pump air, well, there's another perfectly good lung that can pump air. And this would mean that it's actually a benefit. And the thing I mentioned earlier about the time for a given molecule to reach the lung, yeah, that's not really gonna impact much functionally. Think about it. When you breathe, you have a whole esophagus and tubing connecting the esophagus to the lungs. And your body's not really doing much with all that air. It's gonna be functionally the same, although there will be more tubage, which, come to think of it, the lungs can move out of the way more, because the tubage is what connects it to the esophagus. And moving the esophagus, it, that's not a good time. But these lungs, they can move around just fine. Yeah, it's probably going to hurt a lot, and they're still going to be limited anyway because of the airtight setup for the diaphragms, but they're still technically more mobile. Now, as for the placement of the heart's going to be moved more out to the side, considering the woman was perfectly fine having her chest just bulge outward with the push from this long thing being forced through her body. And so, clearly the heart's not going to be in the center with a slight movement towards the other side. No, it's going to be moved way out in that other direction. And it'll be closer to one lung and farther away from the other. It'll be closer to one lung. And as per the stomach, well, this woman probably doesn't have a stomach. mainly because of the burning sensation from that giant thing getting shoved through the whole digestive system. And also because maintaining the stomach as just part of that straight line would probably not. Yeah, that's not how the stomach normally is. And, the succubus is probably going to be in pain, which it does not sound like she's in pain. So the woman has no stomach. And the same possibly applies to the succubus. And you may be thinking about how she's gonna eat, because the stomach's important for digestion. But it's actually not required, and there's plenty of people where they, have issues, and so the bottom part of the stomach is separated from the intestines, and then the doctors basically attach that to the esophagus. And the ability for the organs to move around within the body. Yeah, I'm not really sure what happens when that kicks in, but it's not strong enough to break the stitches, so I guess it's not too significant. And those people can go on to live healthy, happy lives, although they may or may not have dietary changes and be taking more supplements than they would otherwise. And one more thing to mention, one half of the body it would be closer to the heart because the heart is moved. It's moved like so many of these organs. And so, this would mean that one half of the body gets the blood quicker than the other half, assuming that the blood pumps it all and at the same rate. So, it's either gonna pull a horse and have one half of the body, well, not really half, but one side of the body constricting the flow of blood with its arteries, like a horse, even though such things are usually major health problems in anything else. Or one part of the body is going to have arteries that pump the blood faster. Or because the whole body is pulling from the same blood supply, going through the same system, it doesn't really matter where the heart is placed. And I just don't understand it properly. And there is no need for a system that ensures the blood flow is equal throughout the entire body if we are strictly talking about time. Because time is not relevant too much. Its effectiveness that's the real relevant thing. And so that's what the body would be focusing on. And so it's probably not going to have any major heart problems associated with this newer system. Although the major arteries would be arranged differently because they're not going to go down the center of the body. They're going to be pushed over to one side. And besides that, the organs are pretty much going to be the same. Although the bladder might have been split and then sort of had two smaller bladders on the opposite sides of the body because of the way of the bulge from the succubus. If the woman had a normal bladder, she may or may not have, how do I word this? Peed herself from the sheer pressure applied to her bladder. But honestly, that's not a necessary thing, and she could have peed beforehand. And now, coming to the close of the video, Because the digestive system is basically just one tube that is straight, for at least the most part, stuff can come out rather easily. The turds may or may not be longer. And, you know those rides where you drop? I don't know what they're called, but you like go up real high, and then gravity pulls you down, and there's a stop? Yeah, creatures with this kind of digestive system are probably going to crap their pants from